The sun sits in the bowels of the earth at the winter solstice and does not rise for 3 days. Jesus lays in the tomb for 3 days and does not rise. Your Christ seed, your chrism, sits in your hypothalamus for arguably 3 days, 2.5 days. And then it moves on. It is crucified, amplified in power when it reaches your pituitary pineal. To mix up the stories even more, you've made it to the promised land because you make it to the land flowing with milk, serotonin and honey, DMT. What's happening up there happens inside you and happened inside the life and times of Jesus on planet Earth. What a magnificent, mystical, magical thing that is. Hey guys, just want to speak about something that came up in a conversation I had yesterday with Tom, who is the social worker here at Featherstone. Now, we were discussing, Tom's a Christian and a literal Christian, of course, as is taught most of the time in society. But Tom is a little bit open. He sometimes asks me questions about things, as do other members of my staff, how I see things. Now, while I was having this discussion with Tom, I spoke about something that I realised I hadn't mentioned in the videos. Now, I was speaking about how he knows the story of Jesus, but he doesn't know its relationship to the reality we live in, which is a big thing. And I think as the church develops, if I were to ever be part of Christianity, I would have to insist that they develop their teaching. I would have to insist that they teach every level of Jesus' story, because it's undeniable that it is an external, an astrological, and an internal story. We all know Jesus is born on Christmas Day. The Son is resurrected on Christmas Day. As the winter equinox comes, the sun sits in the bowels of the earth for 3 days on the northern hemisphere. It does not rise. On the 3rd day it rises, just as Jesus is born of pure consciousness on that day. But then, as Jesus turns 30, he is baptized by John the Baptist. As 30 days go forward from the day of the resurrection of the sun in the sky from the winter equinox, it enters the star sign of Aquarius, formerly known as Baptismo. The sun is baptized. As you move forward in the Bible, and the disciples become fishers of men, you enter Pisces. As you come to the point where the burnt offering is required, the sun is burning up Aries in the sky. The lamb that is sacrificed, the sacrificial lamb, the burnt offering, is Aries, the star sign Aries. Now, I've spoken about this in other videos, how this journey represents the journey of Jesus. The sun in the sky makes the same journey as what the physical Jesus made. Even before the winter equinox, where it lays in the tomb for 3 days, it passes through the crux. The sun in the sky passes through the crucifix, the star sign. It is crucified. And then it sits, just as Jesus was crucified on the cross, and then it sits in the tomb for 3 days. Now, what I've never spoken about, and I should have before now, is that just as Jesus travels with his 12 disciples on the planet, and then is crucified and resurrected, just as the sun travels through the 12 star signs, is crucified and is resurrected at the winter equinox. Let me add in there, many Christians are fearful of astrology, astrotheology. But the first page of the Bible says, let the stars be for signs. And when the birth of the Messiah himself took place, the magi came to visit him. For those of you who don't know, who haven't bothered to check what magi means, magi were Iranian astrologers. They were present at the birth of the Christ, the wise men from the east. It's the wisdom coming from the east of your mind, actually, but it's also the light that comes from the east if you abide in the northern hemisphere. So, excuse me, I have a hair in my mouth. How does that reflect as an internal journey? Now I've shown that as Jesus is crucified to the cross, his 5 senses must die, so must your 5 senses die in meditation and prayer, so as you can commune with God. The 5 wounds representing the 5 senses. When you meditate and you build your temple, you must build it in a quiet place where your 5 senses are not present. This is why David can't build his temple, because there's war all around him. You can't build your temple. The temple not made of hands is the you. It's your mind, your mental and spiritual temple. And of course you can't build it if there's chaos of your ego everywhere. The part of you that's having a go at yourself. I can't do this, I can't do that. Maybe he'll say this, maybe she'll say that. This is the war around you that stops you from building your temple in meditation. But to sacrifice your 5 senses, silences yourself, allows you to meditate and build your temple or build your ark. Now what is an imperative part of that is what I've mentioned before, is the secretion, the sacred secretion. The iktos, or the chrism, the Christ within, as the ancient Greeks called it, the chrism. Now as that is secreted once a month, as the moon enters your star sign, let the stars be for signs. This is intertwined into how you are. What happens up there happened in the life of Jesus. You can't step away and ignore that. It happened. But the most powerful light in the sky, the journey it takes, is the same journey that one of the most powerful lights to walk the earth took in his waking, living life. But how does that translate into you? Well, Jesus dies at the age of 33, and everyone's spine in a human has 33 vertebrae straight down the middle. Now as he walks with his 12 disciples, the sun passes through the 12 constellations, the secretion must make that journey up through your body. And when the secretion makes that journey, it passes through your 12 cell salts. Now I've never mentioned this before, because I've also never gone into alchemy and stuff like this, because it's a very complex thing. But as I've said, I've got all the time in the world, I hope. I've got at least the next 20 or 30 years, and if YouTube and such platforms are around, then I will create a catalogue of videos with everything I know and everything I'm still learning. I have a stack of books coming. Fritzi's currently in Hamburg, and I have a pile of books coming from Hamburg that I've been requesting over the last few months. So as I can further my education and my understanding of the beautiful science of astrotheology and esoterics, the world of God. So your secretion travels through your 33 vertebrae, represented by the 33 years of Jesus' life. It travels through there, and it reaches your hypothalamus. When it reaches your hypothalamus, it stays dormant for 2.5 days. It sits in the tomb. As Jesus sat in the tomb in the physical world, as the sun sits in the tomb or the bowels of the earth in the northern hemisphere on the winter equinox, the winter solstice, I should say. Gosh. Long day. Long day. The winter solstice, not the winter equinox. As the sun sits in the bowl, I don't know how many times I've said that in the video. As the sun sits in the bowels of the earth at the winter solstice and does not rise for 3 days. Jesus lays in the tomb for 3 days and does not rise. Your Christ seed, your chrism, sits in your hypothalamus for arguably 3 days, 2.5 days. And then it moves on. It is crucified, amplified in power when it reaches your pituitary pineal. To mix up the stories even more, you've made it to the promised land because you make it to the land flowing with milk, serotonin and honey, DMT. What's happening up there? happens inside you that happened inside the life and times of Jesus on planet Earth. What a magnificent, mystical, magical thing that is. And it cannot be tackled with irrational behavior, such as there is only a man, Jesus, I will not listen to this astrology stuff. It's there. It's in your book. The stars be for signs. And if magi can visit the birth of the Messiah, you should take note of the science they knew. For if God's chosen people are those who study the stars, then where's the harm in us studying them also? So Jesus walked the earth with 12 disciples. The sun in the sky, which the word Jesus is ancient Greek. In numerology adds up to 888 is the number of the sun in the sky. As the sun in the sky passes through the 12 constellations, as Jesus walks with his 12 disciples, as your secretion travels through the 12 cell salts of your body. The cell salts are a magnificent thing, and I'll have to do another video about them. It's my first introduction to that side of things and when I've been speaking of this stuff. But as it makes that journey and then is crucified and you get to the promised land, to mix the stories around the land flowing with milk and honey, then you can see how important it is to understand that the story of Jesus, to be understood literal, is a fine thing and a powerful thing. But when the literal story becomes the story in the night sky and also the story that happens inside your body, then it has to make you wonder what happens if the Christ within me, the chrism, the iktos, the secretion from the colostrum, what happens when it is crucified and amplified in power? Then you become a free-thinking individual. And you become a servant of God because he can direct you, because you can see him face to face, as Jacob did, and he called that place Peniel, as is written in the book. Your pineal gland is here. So, I just wanted to share that anyway. As it was in his life, so it is in the night sky, and so it is in your body every month. And that's a beautiful, magical thing to know. So, much love, guys.